All right, let's dive straight into it because the transfer market is heating up. And as usual, there's a roller coaster of emotions. We've got excitement, disappointment, and a few glimmers of real promise. You know the drill. Names flying around some realistic, some complete fantasy. But today we're dealing with proper updates. This isn't just rumor mill nonsense. This is what's really happening. The good, the bad, and the maybe. Let's get into it. So let's start with a name that had the fans buzzing, even if it was just for a few hours. Issa Jansen. A lot of folk got their hopes up yesterday when reports came out that the Rapid Vienna winger had been pulled from training. Now that on its own doesn't mean much, but then came the bombshell Rapid Vienna had accepted a €10 million bid from a club abroad. Cue the excitement. Twitter went wild, forums lit up, everyone thinking, finally we're splashing the cash. Well, serious this window? Some folk already had him penciled into the starting 11, right? But as always with Celtic, things are never that straightforward. Turns out the club throwing down the 10 million wasn't us. Nope. It was League One side Nice. Yep, that's right. Jansen's off to France, not Glasgow. Bit of a gut punch, especially considering the excitement it generated so quickly. One moment, he was maybe joining the next, he was already out the picture. Now fair play, there's no room for sentiment in this game. If we weren't in for him seriously, then move on. But it does raise questions, doesn't it? Like, why not us? If Nice are willing to invest that kind of money in him, is it a sign we're still being a bit too cautious? Is it just not the right profile for Brendan? Or are we holding off for something bigger? Either way, Jansen's name goes on the list of ones that got away. Not that he was ever really here. That's football. 1 second you're linked, the next you're forgotten. But let's not dwell on the missed chance. Because there's better news coming out of Japan, and it involves a striker who might just be exactly what we need, Shinji Yamada. Now, this one feels different. It's not just paper talk. It's not just whispers. We've got solid reporting from both Japanese and Scottish media saying that Celtic are close to signing the Kawasaki Frontale striker, and this is a player who last season was absolutely on fire. Couldn't stop scoring. This season, bit of a different story. But we'll get to that. From Japan's side, the respected outlet Sports Hochi confirmed that Celtic are pushing hard for Yamada, who's currently on international duty at the E1 Championship. Interestingly, he was selected for Japan for the first time for this tournament. And it's not their full-strength squad, mind you. No overseas-based players were called up. It's a squad made entirely of domestic talent. That's important because it gave Yamada a chance to shine on the international stage. The tournament's taking place in South Korea, and Japan have already played one match with 2 more to come. Yamada featured for around 45 minutes in the first game, and it's expected he'll be involved in the next 2 fixtures before returning, and that's when the move to Celtic is expected to be finalized. July 15th is when his international duty ends, so we could be looking at a done deal shortly after that. Now, let's be honest here. This isn't just some unknown punt. Yamada was immense last season. 19 goals in the J1 League from 38 games. When you break down those numbers, they're even more impressive. He had a slow start to that campaign, but in the second half of the season, he absolutely exploded. He went on one of those crazy striker runs where everything he touched turned to goals, braces in back-to-back games, single goals every other match, even a hat trick or 2. He's what you call a confidence player, no doubt about it. When he's in the zone, he's lethal. When he's not, he fades. And look, this season hasn't been the best for him. Only 2 goals in the league so far, 6 in total across all competitions. But before anyone starts writing him off, let's look a bit closer. He's barely getting consistent minutes. A lot of sub appearances coming on for 15-20 minutes. That makes it hard for any striker to build rhythm. And even when he's not scoring, he's still making the right movements. That's what Japanese football analyst Ryo Nagawara pointed out when he spoke about Yamada recently. He's not just a poacher, although he certainly is a box striker. He's clever with his movement, gets into pockets of space, and is surprisingly good in the air for someone who isn't exactly tall or physically imposing. It's not about brute force with him. It's all about timing and positioning. He's 2-footed sharp in and around the 6-yard box and thrives in systems where he gets regular service. Which, if Celtic get their attack clicking the way we know they can, could make him an absolute steal. And the fact that he's still finding the right areas even during a dry spell suggests that the issue isn't form, it's probably more confidence or opportunity. Players go through these spells. Even the best strikers have those seasons where nothing seems to go in. What matters is whether they're still making those runs, still reading the game properly. Yamada's doing that. And listen, he's not a kid. He's just turned 25. So we're not talking about a long-term project here. He's someone who, if things go right, could come in and contribute immediately. The club clearly sees something in him, and they're right to. Last year's numbers weren't a fluke. You don't hit 19 league goals in Japan's top flight by accident. So this feels like the kind of calculated gamble Celtic need to make. There's always risk, of course, but Yamada ticks a lot of the boxes. Brendan Rodgers likes players who understand space, who don't need 5 touches to finish, and who can read the rhythm of the game. Yamada's that type. And if we're going to be creating tons of chances every week, as we should be, then having a guy who thrives on half chances could be massive. There's another update, a bit more low-key, but still worth mentioning. Balikwisha. Now, this name's been linked for a while. Celtic have shown interest over several windows, and the connection hasn't gone away. The winger missed training with Royal Antwerp during their preseason camp in Austria. The manager said it was due to fitness issues, which might be true. But come on, we know how this usually goes. Whenever there's transfer speculation and a player suddenly isn't training, the alarm bells start ringing. Balikwisha's a talent, no doubt. He's quick, he's direct, and given that we've lost pace on the flanks, especially with Madas. Injury problems, he could fill that void. But here's the concern, his injury record. He's missed significant chunks of the last 2 seasons, and while we can talk about potential and availability is everything, you can't help the team from the treatment table. That said, if the club's still pursuing him, they'll have done their homework. They'll know his medical history inside out, so maybe they feel confident in his fitness going forward. And with the way the squad is shaping up, or maybe not shaping up depending on how you see it, there's clearly still a lot of work to do. The pace of business has been a bit quicker than in previous years, but it still feels like we're a few pieces short. You look at the squad, and aside from the keeper and maybe right back, you could argue every position needs strengthening. We need a proper left winger. We need another striker, especially if Kyogo doesn't find his top form. A midfielder with a bit more steel wouldn't hurt. Centre back definitely. And we still need someone to back up Tierney on the left if he stays. Fit? Or take over if he doesn't. There was a mention of Tyrell Malaysia. Not sure how realistic that is, to be honest. Seems a bit too high profile unless it's a loan deal. But who knows, stranger things have happened. The centre-back search is dragging on. Names keep popping up like D's from Portugal. We'll see if anything comes of that. Feels like we're waiting for that one big move to drop and start the dominoes falling. But the key takeaway is this: the club know they need to act. The squad isn't where it needs to be, not for the level of football we want to play. And certainly not for Europe. So expect more moves soon. Let's keep this going because there's a few more updates to break down, and one in particular that could have long-term implications. I'm talking about Johnny Kenny. Now, this is a player whose name might not generate massive headlines, but it's a situation that deserves attention. Brendan Rodgers has more or less confirmed that Kenny is on the verge of signing a new contract with Celtic. And you know what? That's a really good sign. Not because Kenny is ready to start leading the line in European nights or anything like that, not yet anyway, but because it shows there's a plan in place. He's a young forward who still has a lot to develop, but the club clearly sees something worth investing in. And just as importantly, Kenny himself sees a future here. He's made it clear he wants to make it at Celtic. Not just hang around for a few years and bounce, but actually break through and become a regular first-team player. That attitude's refreshing. He knows he's not ready yet, he's realistic about the pecking order, and he's embracing the idea of going out on loan to build himself up. That's exactly the kind of mindset you want from a young player. Someone who isn't afraid of the challenge, who's willing to step away from the comfort of Lennoxtown and fight for minutes elsewhere to prove he belongs. It's easy for young players to get stuck in limbo at big clubs, training with the senior squad, but not getting any real competitive action. Kenny wants to avoid that. He's pushing for game time wherever that may be, and that kind of hunger should be applauded. Now, interestingly, he took a nasty knock in training earlier this week, a shin injury that had Rodgers thinking he might miss the friendly against Cork City. But Kenny wasn't having any of it. He pushed himself to be fit, made sure he could feature in front of a home crowd, and got himself on the pitch. That says something about his mentality. It would have been easy to sit out, recover slowly, and not take any risks. But he wanted to play. That shows character. Now the expectation is that he'll go out on loan this window, and I hope the club, I'll get that right. He needs regular football, not just any football. For me, the best move would be to a fellow Scottish Premiership side. Hibs, Aberdeen, St Mirren, even Motherwell. Somewhere he'll face real pressure in front of decent crowds in the same league he's eventually hoping to star in for Celtic. And it's not just about minutes, it's about building experience in the exact context he's aiming for. Understanding the pace of the game in Scotland, the physicality, the kinds of defenders he'll face week in, week out. It's also a bonus that he'd still be based in Scotland, adjusting to the lifestyle, the travel, the rhythm of the domestic calendar. There's no downside. And we've seen this work before. Think of Ryan Christie's spell at Aberdeen or Christopher Ajer at Kilmarnock. Sometimes these loans are the final step before a breakthrough. Sometimes they're reality checks. But either way, you learn. And Kenny seems up for that. Now, while we're on the subject of smart development, I think the club should be doing this more often. Not just with Kenny, but with guys like Hyunjun Yang or even Hayato Aramura, assuming he doesn't tear it up straight away. Too often we keep players around just in case, and they end up sitting on the bench for months, maybe catching 20 minutes here and there in dead rubbers. What do they really learn from that? Get them out into the league, get them playing proper. Our matches, and most importantly, let them fail. Let them make mistakes, lose duels, miss chances. That's how you grow. And as a bonus, it strengthens other Premiership teams when they're not playing against us. That's a strategic win. Anyway, moving on, we got one last bit of news from the SPFL that might have flown under the radar for some, but it's worth mentioning. Premier Sports have extended their sponsorship of the League Cup until 2031, so it's going to remain the Premier Sports Cup for at least another 6 seasons. Now, I know sponsorship stuff isn't exactly thrilling, but there's something nostalgic about this for a lot of fans. It makes them the longest-serving League Cup sponsor since CIS Insurance back in the day, late 90s into the mid-2000s. And for some of us, that's peak League Cup memory lane. Those were the days of Channel 5 showing the games BBC getting the rights after and all those classic midweek clashes under the lights. Nowadays, it's a bit different. Feels like the League Cup has lost a bit of its identity in recent years with all the sponsor changes and format tweaks. But with this deal locked in, maybe there's a chance to build some consistency again. Premier Sports, love them or hate them, have at least made a commitment. And while Celtic won't enter the competition until mid-August, we're gunning for what would be a 9th League Cup win in 12 seasons. And that's remarkable, no matter how you frame it. Now, all of this, the transfers, the loans, the contract renewals, even the League Cup stuff, it all points to a club that's preparing for a crucial season. There's pressure. Domestic dominance isn't guaranteed anymore. Europe is always demanding. The fans want more, and rightly so. And it's clear Brendan Rodgers is trying to shape a squad that can deliver on multiple fronts. But it's going to take bold moves. We can't hesitate. If there's a target we believe in, like Yamada, we have to go all in. If there's a young player like Kenny with the right mentality, we need to give him the best environment to thrive. And if there are players who aren't quite hitting the mark, then tough calls need to be made. This window is going to define the tone for the entire campaign. And the truth is we can't afford to get it wrong. The margins are too fine now. One bad week and suddenly the pressure piles up. One injury crisis and suddenly the squad depth is exposed. That's why every decision counts. Every sign and every outgoing loan, every contract negotiation, it all has to be spot on. So let's see how things unfold. We've already had a few twists and turns, and there are definitely more to come. The Yamada deal feels like it's going to happen. And if it does, it could be a game changer. Balikwisha is one to keep an eye on, especially if the medical side checks out. And don't be surprised if we hear a few surprise names pop up in the next few days. That's just how these windows work. Keep your phones charged, your notifications on, and stay ready. Because things are moving. And the next time we talk, we might be welcoming a new face or saying goodbye to one. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Could Parkhead be preparing for a midfield revolution? The rumour mill's grinding overtime after an image surfaced online showing Scotland international Billy Gilmour donning the iconic number 8 shirt of Celtic, though no official word has come. From the club or the player, the sight of the Brighton midfielder in hoops has set tongues wagging from the East End to the Highlands. Social media exploded as the photo made its rounds, with fans immediately drawing comparisons to one of modern football's greatest midfielders. "He's the new Modric," one supporter wrote, echoing a sentiment that seems to be growing louder among the Celtic faithful. The comparison isn't without basis. Gilmour's tidy passing, vision, and calmness under pressure have long invited lofty praise. And at just 23, his best years are still ahead. Still, questions remain. Gilmour, who struggled for consistent minutes in the Premier League, might view a move north as a step backward, but others argue the opposite. A starring role at a European regular like Celtic could be just the platform he needs to reignite his career and anchor Scotland's midfield ahead of Euro 2028. Insiders close to the club have kept tight-lipped, but whispers suggest something might be brewing behind the scenes. With Matt O'Reilly's future uncertain and Celtic always looking to blend youth with experience, Gilmour could be the perfect fit in Brendan Rodgers' engine room. It's worth noting that stranger things have happened in the world of football. Whether it's wishful thinking or the beginning of something special, one thing's for certain: the sight of Billy Gilmour in Celtic green has sparked a feverish excitement. For now, it remains just a rumor, but one that's impossible to ignore. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.